Welcome back to Expressing My Thoughts, the show where I take a look at the weirdest pieces of media out there and give my general opinion on... This hurts. This really, really hurts. But I haven't made a ranking like this in a while, so you might as well do it in the state that you're in, I guess. Today we're taking a look at a filmography of a person I'm kind of surprised no one's done a ranking on yet, Alejandro Jodorowski. I really hope I pronounced that correctly.
Alejandro Jodorowski is a Chilean director born on the 17th of February, 1929? You're telling me that this guy is 96 years old? And he has an Instagram? Huh, maybe there is some truth to enlightenment. This guy is an odd animal. Like, sure, he's a major egotist, but at the same time, he's made some of the most unforgettable pieces of surrealist filmmaking that wouldn't have been done by anyone else but him. Not to mention that he's a pretty fascinating fellow to do research on. He was in the circus. He's obsessed with tarot cards. He was good friends with Salvador Dali. He once made an entire studio album about the Iranian religious finder Zarathustra, and it sounds like this. He met Kanye West once. This was around the time where Ye was still a respected name, by the way. Long story short, Jodorowski is a really huge part of the avant-garde scene, and most weird films nowadays wouldn't even get the time of day if it wasn't for how groundbreaking most of his work is. And I will forever respect his movies for influencing my entire wardrobe.
So sit back and relax, as I barely talk, while we rank the movies of one of the most influential avant-garde filmmakers of all time. This really needs to come to an end soon.
Jodorowski has made a legacy for himself by making some of the most controversial, surreal, and utterly confusing movies to have ever been put on the big screen. Tusk is not one of them. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've always found it really fascinating when a director known for their weirder and more controversial sides makes a kids movie. Hell, it's even more fascinating when a director is so weird that they're practically incapable of making one. And Alejandro, without a doubt, falls into that latter category. Not that there's anything in this movie that's vulgar or dark or anything, but it's because I cannot imagine any kid being interested enough to watch this all the way through. This movie is boring. It is just so boring. The acting, the story, the visuals. I was like 45 to 50 minutes into the movie until I realized, really? Is that how the whole movie's going to look? Let me remind you that I've never been to India, but from seeing pictures of it and, watching a few Bollywood movies, it is one of the most beautiful and lavish places you could ever go to. Here, it all feels very muddy and washed out, and Jodorowsky's unique set design is almost completely absent from this movie, meaning that we don't have any interesting standout locations. And let me remind you that the last movie he made was The Holy Mountain, one of the most complete visions of any surreal director. It all feels very unfinished. And that's partially because it was. According to Jodorowsky himself, the producer of Tusk, Eric Rochat, declared bankruptcy right in the middle of production, leaving the project unfinished and pretty much taking the money and running with it. To this day, he is still fighting for Final Cut and hoping to remake it one day, which I'd be fine with. There are signs of a good movie in there somewhere. Hell, it's based on a novel made by a World War II naval officer. You could do some pretty interesting things with that. But for now, until Jodorowsky is able to get the rights for the film back, we're stuck with a really lackluster follow-up to one of the most influential weird movies of all time. Overall, 7 out of 10, too many elephants.
Whoa, that's a full rainbow, all the way, double rainbow.
Released in 1990, The Rainbow Thief is a movie that exists. What? College is around the corner. I ain't putting my A game into this. This would be the last film Jodorowsky would make until 2013, mainly because he outright wasn't allowed to change the script, limiting his involvement with the film. Since then, it's the only movie he's properly disowned and would refuse to bring it up when discussing his filmography in interviews. Hell, in the 1994 documentary La Constellation Jodorowsky, He doesn't even discuss the movie at all, going on a 2.5-minute rant about having zero creative control over the final product.
Mais il m'a dit que je devais, parce que c'était un film qui allait coûter 10 millions de dollars minimum, que je devais m'adapter au système américain. Sauf que ça veut dire que je n'étais pas libre.
A lot of the same issues I had with Tusk apply here as well. There's little to none of his signature traits, everyone looks like they don't want to be there, and I would say it's as boring as Paper, but you can technically make something really interesting with Paper, so it couldn't even get that right. Though it is a pretty nice reunion between O'Toole and Sharif, who hadn't worked with each other since Lawrence of Arabia, and I like that movie, so I guess it gets a few extra points over Tusk, I guess. I don't know, man, I'm really trying to say something here. This film's really boring, end of story.
Dance with me, Lois. Dance the dance of life!
The dance of reality and endless poetry. It's a tie! That joke was way too easy to make, I'm very sorry. I'm putting these two together because they're not just movies about Jodorowsky's life, but they're surprisingly really great movies about Jodorowsky's life. Saying that both of these are a return to form for him, if you will, is a massive understatement. And while they could be seen as a huge ego stroke, and it is, but they are some of the weirdest and most fascinating ego strokes you could possibly have with some surprisingly really good acting. Good God, is the acting really good. Everyone in Alejandro's family playing different versions of him is giving it their all, which I could never say about any other movie that was made purely off of someone else's ego. I don't think anyone with an ego as big as Jodorowsky's can be able to pull that off, except for him. It doesn't have the same cult notoriety as the next 4 films on this list, and they can get a tad boring in their second acts, but these are all worth watching if you want to see how Alejandro himself saw the world he lived in growing up. It's Alejandro giving self-fellatio to himself, but... Howdy, y'all! El Topo is a 1970 Mexican acid western film written, scored, directed by, and starring Alejandro Jodorowsky. Characterized by its bizarre characters and occurrences, use of maimed and dwarf performers, and heavy doses of Judeo-Christian symbolism and Eastern philosophy, the film is about El Topo, a violent black-clad gunfighter played by Jodorowsky, and his quest for enlightenment. Yep, I don't think I could sum that up any better. This is a weird movie. From frame one, it already successfully separates itself from any other crazy western at the time, and its presentation here is just jaw-dropping. This was apparently a submission for the Academy Awards for Best Foreign Film, and it was never even nominated, which is wild to me considering its legendary cult status. Especially with people saying that it's as good, if not better, than The Holy Mountain. Guys, look, I'm not gonna come out of the gate and explain why El Topo is bad, actually. It's not. It's a really good film, and I 100% get why it's seen as one of Jodorowsky's most beloved films. Considering that it was cited as a major influence of the works of Gore Verbinski, Goshi Suda, and weirdest of all, Phil Collins, who based Genesis' entire 6th album around it. There was even plans for a sequel at one point, but that ended up becoming a free volume comic book series instead. I personally think it's just a really unpleasant movie to watch, not just with how real the blood felt in most scenes, including the opening town massacre looking a lot like something you would see in a mass shooting, let alone a western, which I do get was the point, but still. But with what was going on behind the scenes, including... I get that I'm saying this to a super talented filmmaker, but Alejandro, what the absolute fuck? It's also just a little too long. I'm hesitant in saying that they should have cut some of this stuff out, since a lot of it does make a ton of thematic sense and context, and it would rob us of some beautiful looking visuals, but this definitely would have benefited from being like a 19-minute movie instead of a full 2 hours. Especially with the aforementioned which admittedly made El Topo a lot more dislikable, even though he's supposed to be, well, the hero. Hello? I'm not going to pretend that this whole project isn't anything beyond a huge ego boost, but if there's any filmmaker out there who can make an awestruck artistic statement out of his own ego, it would be Jodorowsky. Plus, there's a guy in his swimming shorts at one point, and he's pretty cool. So I'm perfectly fine with El Topo existing. Seriously though, what the absolute fuck?
Bill, I believe this is killing me.
The movie opens with a minute-long shot of just a random woman eating flowers. Just a whole bunch of flowers. Movie. This is the final straw.
But you haven't said prayers yet!
Listen here, I don't care about saying prayers right now, I'm hungry! Released in 1968, Fondo and Liz is about a couple looking for the mythical city of Tar and just doing a ton of stuff for an hour and a half. And it is just so fun! Jodorowski is in the camp of many, many directors whose first film is just a collection of ideas as opposed to a typical narrative. But hey, that's never stopped me from loving that sort of movie before, and oh my god, that guy is recording fire? There's a ton of people rolling around in mud, random mummies in the middle of nowhere, the leads get so carried away with writing their own names on the wall that they end up covering the whole room in paint. And that's only the tip of this weird-ass iceberg. There's also a bunch of parallels to Dante's Inferno and all that wild shit. Look, what I'm trying to say is that it's Jodorowsky's way of having fun, and for all that to be squeezed all into his first feature film shows that the guy is a lot more than just someone who does strange stuff to provoke. I love it, it's great. Oh look, it's that one Marilyn Manson album cover. See, this is where you put in the laugh track.
I'm God.
You know, this is just a really strange and really annoying placement for me, because The Holy Mountain is one of my favorite movies of all time, though despite being that, I don't really have much to say about it, nor if there's anything left to say about it. This is the second movie Jodorowsky has made about a group of people traveling somewhere to achieve enlightenment, but unlike El Topo, it is taken to the most extreme possible angle. A very symmetrical one. But it's still pretty phenomenal. The soundtrack's amazing, the cinematography is awesome, there's a scene near the beginning where a bunch of frogs run an Aztec society, which I thought was pretty fun. And unlike El Topo, I actually felt that the slowness of everything actually kind of had a point, because it kept introducing new original facets to everything, keeping it more varied. And it was even revered by several members of the Beatles. George Harrison was a really big fan of the script, but backed out from playing the lead because the script required for him to be naked all the time. And John, Yoko, and their manager at the time, Alan Klein, agreed to fund the movie because they were all big fans of Jodorowsky's work, which I think is pretty awesome. The only reason I see that as a negative, though, is because I really don't like John Lennon. I get that his heart's in the right place for most of the decisions he's made throughout his life, and he has made some really good songs, but I'm sorry, he could be such a nutcase sometimes. Like, this is the same guy who decided to name the opening song on his first studio album, Woman is the of the World. A song that compared sexism to the slavery of black African Americans. Gee, I wonder why this never got any radio play. John, I get that you're doing this for a good cause, man, but a filter every once in a while would be nice. Sorry, I got sidetracked. What I'm trying to say here is, The Holy Mountain is an awesome movie. The only reason I'm not putting this at number 1, though, is that the surrealism on display here would be done a lot better in... Oh, who am I kidding? I'm gonna get slaughtered for putting this over one of the most famous experimental movies anyways. This part has been pre-recorded. I'm currently hiding in my war bunker. Location will remain anonymous. Let's just get this over with.
Nope. Nope. It's a pretty good one. But I'm pretty sure Evasive already took it. I guess that'll work. If I had a nickel for every NC-17 movie I put at number 1 in my rankings.
Seriously, man, Santa Sangre is such a good movie, and no one ever talks about it. It's the Alex Lifeson of his filmography. It's also, at least in the context of his career at the time, the fullest vision he's ever had for a project since The Holy Mountain, being loosely autobiographical and starring his own family in the mix. This is a movie that consists of 100% Jodorowskyisms, and it really shows. It's also his only horror film, so count this number 1 spot as pure bias on my part. I almost want to apologize, but who has the time, honestly? And speaking of time, how much time do you want me to just gush about this thing? What, with the lavish set design, the over-the-top story, Suspiria-level lighting, and this guy? Like, sure, it's easily his darkest movie by far, but at the same time, it's beautiful. As beautiful as A Nightmare can be, but still beautiful. And I know I should probably use some sort of David Lynch comparison, as I'm one to do, but let's face it, he probably didn't take as much acid to come up with something like this. It's the most brilliant ugly duckling of his entire filmography, and a good sum up of the man himself. Insane, dark, extremely full of himself, but resilient, and would stop at nothing until his art has a purpose in the world. Seriously though, can someone please explain the aura of this image to me? I still don't get it.